Good morning, my dear friends. April in the garden. Raise your hand or give a heart if you were waiting for April. I couldn't wait because this winter lasted very long this year. And April, well, everything has to start growing, everything has to start blooming. I won't be looking at weather forecasts anymore because I hope there won't be any more snow. Today we'll take a walk around the garden, which is already an April garden. But this garden is different than it was for the last 2 seasons, because when you watch last year's episodes, April in the Garden, by the way, I encourage you to check them out. They're linked somewhere here. You can see the difference. Back then it was much warmer, but now this cold has been bothering us, so all these plants are only just starting to grow. That's why I'll show you what has happened in the garden and what needs to be done in the garden already in April, and a little later as well. We'll actually start the tour of my garden from the vegetable patch, because in my vegetable patch nothing really happened in March. Apart from the fact that there are already some perennial plants growing here, nothing happened because it was very cold. So now it's time to roll up my sleeves just like I did and get to work in the vegetable patch. Even in the greenhouse there still isn't much going on because it really was quite cold. But in my pots, here in the raised beds, there's last year's layered bulb planting. The hyacinths, alliums and some grape hyacinths are already coming up beautifully here in both of them. There are also tulip leaves. I don't know if they'll bloom, but there are quite a lot of leaves. In the foreground in front of me, there's already some really nice rhubarb, and I think in 2 or 3 weeks it'll be ready for its first harvest. Cut for the first compote, a summer one already, so I'll actually be doing everything in the vegetable garden over the next 2 weeks. We'll add a bit of compost, I'll remove the weeds, and we'll try to plant some new plants here, because it's already time. I think that around mid-April will be the time for plants that like the cold to appear. We'll be pricking out the tomatoes, and in a moment I'll show you the sweet peas and sugar snap peas I already have because they're really big now, so they'll also go into the ground. Since I was already, my dear friends, in the vegetable garden and around the greenhouse, I took some pansies from the greenhouse. The pansies that were left there to be planted in the garden, but it was so cold that I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So now that they're grown and blooming, they absolutely have to go into the ground. They're already growing in pots, and as for what's left, now I can plant it in the ground. And in April, these ones, well, the pansies were a while ago, but other plants, the seasonal ones, the so-called early vegetables, can be planted in the ground now. Write in the comments which of these spring blooming plants you've already planted, because I'm really curious if a lot of these plants have already appeared in your gardens. I said that I don't expect any frost in April, but you still have to be careful, especially when it comes to taking care of the garden hydrangea. I have a garden hydrangea here, Otaksa, which had over 100 flowers last year. I told you about it. And April is already the time when it starts to sprout those green buds, and I can finally get rid of last year's flowers. So in April, I usually watch the weather, trim those last year's flowers, and if there are going to be frosts later, of course, you need to cover it a bit. I hope that the cold will leave us alone this year, this season, and that everything will grow beautifully. I'm going to start pruning now. Basically, I just trim the flower heads themselves, meaning the whole top. Unless you want to do some corrective pruning on your garden hydrangea and you see that one of the stems is dried out or frozen, then you cut it out. I can see maybe 2 or 3 of them here, so I'll trim them then. If you want to adjust the height of this hydrangea, of course you can cut off the top 10 to 15 centimeters from the stems. However, I would like it to grow more here, so I'm only trimming the flower heads. Listen, I've come to the climbing rows that we pruned together because now you can really see the importance of proper pruning and bending of the stems. It's in April that we can see everything on this rose, and we're glad we did it this way. Listen, these stems that were bent, all of them got sunlight on their buds and all of them started to produce new flowering shoots, so there will be lots of flowers here. And the stems that weren't bent, like this one for example, only had the buds at the very top wake up. So here, only this part will have flowers, while from those stems that are bent, there will be flowering shoots everywhere and new flowers will appear here. My dear friends, but it's not just work that keeps us going in April, so I recommend going out to the garden every day or several times a day and observing nature, because it's in April that it changes the fastest. And it's in April that the first blooming bulb plants appear, and there are always plenty of them in the garden if you have them. That's why it's worth walking around to admire them. And now we'll show you a few shots with hyacinths, magnolia, and some other plants that are already blooming. But taking advantage of the fact that I'm here, this is my warmest flower bed, and a variety of plants self-seed really well here. Salvias have self-seeded here, especially Caradonna salvias. So April is a great time to gently lift these little seedlings, these small plants, and transplant them to other places. That's why in April, as I already mentioned, a new flower bed will be created here, and these are probably some of the last shots that look like this in my garden. So in some of the next videos, I'll show you how I create such a flower bed from scratch. I hope that in April you'll find time to have some of your first gatherings in the garden. Sit down with a cup of coffee. Therefore, you should remember to take care of your garden furniture and all kinds of benches and seats. If you have wooden ones, you need to clean them from time to time. I'm here in my little garden nook. And I can see that this winter here in the shade, the boards are looking a bit rough. So in April, I start cleaning all my wooden elements. I take a pressure washer and I'll try to clean everything nicely. Remember this, because if you want wooden elements like these in your garden to look good, you have to take care of them. My dear friends, and if you don't have wooden elements in your garden, I encourage you to add them because they always give a really nice, soft effect. So I also have this option for you on the Jagram website. You'll find basically all the same elements I have in my garden, and additionally, you get a 10% discount from me. Just click the link in the description of this video and choose some great wooden items for your garden. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and write something interesting in the comments. What do you want? What are you doing in your garden now? What's blooming where you are? And now let's move on to the next episode. See you.